Nobody told you the rules changed the moment you landed. The CPP formula was not designed for you, the pension your neighbor is counting on. You will not get that version, not because you are not working hard enough, because the clock started late. And here is what nobody in your HR orientation, your settlement office, or your bank branch ever said out loud. You cannot afford to invest the same way everyone else does. Your timeline is different. Your risk profile is different. Your strategy has to be different. So if you are sitting here wondering why your income looks decent but your wealth is not moving, and this video is going to explain exactly why, and then show you what to do instead. Let me show you what staying in the dark actually costs. If you arrived in Canada at 40 or later, and you work here until 65, you are looking at roughly 20 to 25 years of CPP contributions. The maximum CPP payout assumes nearly 4 decades of full contributions. That gap, that is not a small number. We are talking about the difference between a monthly retirement payment of over $1,300 and one that is less than half of that for life. And if you have been here 20 years and never built anything outside of your job, the window is closing faster than it feels. The person who arrived 2 years ago and the person who has been here 2 decades share one problem. Neither of them was ever taught how money actually compounds inside the Canadian system. That ignorance has a price, and it compounds too. Here is what the data actually shows. A 2022 report from the Canada Revenue Agency found that over 40% of eligible Canadians had never opened a TFSA account at all. Think about that. The government hands you a tax-free account. No tax on growth. No tax on withdrawal, ever, and almost half the country has not touched it. If you are new to Canada, that number probably does not shock you. No one explained it to you. If you have been here for years, that number should sting. A 2021 survey by the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada found that only 34% of Canadians could correctly explain how TFSA contribution room actually works. That means 2 out of 3 people are guessing, or worse, they are over-contributing and getting hit with a penalty tax that silently eats their returns. And a combined analysis from Statistics Canada and immigration data found that immigrants who arrived after 40 accumulate significantly less retirement wealth than Canadian-born peers, even when their incomes are comparable. The income is not the problem. The structure is the problem, and the structure is fixable. One more number. A 2023 report from Vanguard Canada found that a globally diversified low-cost index portfolio has historically outperformed the average actively managed Canadian mutual fund over any rolling 10-year window after fees. That matters because most people in Canada who do finally open an account get sold a mutual fund with a management fee that quietly consumes 1.5% to 2.5% of their money every single year. On a $200,000 portfolio, that is up to $5,000 gone every year without you noticing. Let me tell you exactly where I stood when I had to figure this out for myself. I did not have the luxury of a 20 or 30-year runway to slowly build CPP and wait for compound interest to do all the work. When I looked at my own numbers honestly, I realized the traditional Canadian retirement formula was not going to work for me the way it was designed to work for someone born here. So I made a deliberate decision. I was going to go aggressive on equities, not because I was reckless, because the math demanded it. My portfolio is built around 4 positions, 60% in U.S. equities through VFV. That is the Vanguard S&P 500 Index ETF, which tracks the 500 largest companies in the United States. 20% in international equities through VIU, that is developed markets outside North America, Europe, Japan, Australia. 10% in Canadian equities through VCN, that is broad Canadian market exposure, and 10% in dividend-producing assets through XEI. That gives me some income generation inside the portfolio. Now here's the part people miss. I did not just pick stocks. I picked the right containers first. TFSA, FHSA, RRSP, RESP for the kids, and a non-registered account sitting ready for when those shelters are maxed. Each of those accounts has a job. The investments sit inside the accounts. You do not skip the accounts and go straight to the investments. And as I decided to go with equities and not fixed income or hard assets, I made sure my portfolio is balanced. Whatever happens, my selections are meant to compensate each other. If there is a downturn in one region, the others carry weight. That is not luck. That is construction. Now, let me walk you through the exact approach. 5 steps. Each one matters. Step 1. Max your tax shelters before you buy a single investment. This is the most violated rule I see among immigrants building wealth in Canada. People open a brokerage account, buy something, and later realize they did it in a taxable account when they had room left in their TFSA. Here is the order of priority. TFSA first. Every dollar of growth, every dividend, every capital gain inside a TFSA is tax-free forever. For 2024, if you were 18 or older and a Canadian resident since 29, your cumulative TFSA room is $95,000. If you arrived recently, your room starts from the year you became a Canadian resident, not the year TFSA was created. Your clock starts at your landing date. FHSA second if you qualify. This is a newer account. It lets first-time home buyers contribute up to $40,000 lifetime, get a tax deduction on contributions like an RRSP, and withdraw tax-free for a qualifying home purchase like a TFSA if you're not buying a home. Unused FHSA funds transferred to your RRSP, you lose nothing. RRSP third. Your contributions reduce your taxable income today. The growth is tax sheltered. You pay tax when you withdraw in retirement, ideally when your income and tax bracket are lower. If you have children, open an RESP. The government will match 20% of your contributions up to $500 per year through the Canada Education Savings Grant. That is free money, not investing advice, free money from the government. Do not leave it. Non-registered account last. This is your overflow account. You still invest here if you have maxed everything else. But capital gains and dividends are taxable here, so put your least tax-efficient holdings in your registered accounts first. Step 2. Choose ETFs, not mutual funds. A mutual fund sold at a Canadian bank often carries a management expense ratio between 1.5% and 2.5% per year. An ETF like VFV carries a management expense ratio of around 0.09%. On a $200,000 portfolio, that difference is roughly $3,000 to $5,000 per year. Over 20 years compounded, that gap does not stay small. ETFs trade on the stock exchange like regular shares. You buy them through a brokerage account. You do not need a financial advisor to access them. If you are just starting, you do not need 10 ETFs. You need 3 or 4 that give you global exposure: U.S. equities, international equities, Canadian equities. And if you want income, a dividend ETF on top. That is a complete portfolio, simple, cheap, effective. Step 3, build your allocation around your actual timeline, not someone else's. The standard advice says hold less equity as you age, shift toward bonds, reduce risk. That advice was written for someone with 40 years of contributions and a full pension waiting at the end. If your timeline is shorter and your CPP benefit will be partial, you may need to stay more heavily weighted toward growth assets for longer. That does not mean be reckless. It means be honest about your math. A 60% allocation to U.S. equities through something like VFV is not extreme if you have a 15 to 20-year horizon and no defined benefit pension weighting. It means your portfolio is doing the heavy lifting that the pension was supposed to do. But here is the discipline that holds it together. When markets drop, and they will drop, you do not sell. You buy more if you can. The person who sold in March of 2020 and stayed out for 6 months lost more than they ever recovered from the initial drop. Volatility is the price you pay for the return. So you do not get the return without sitting through the volatility. Step 4. Automate the contribution so your brain is not in the decision. The biggest wealth killer is not a bad investment. It is doing nothing. Set up a pre-authorized contribution to your brokerage account or your TFSA on the same day you get paid. Before you see the money, before you decide you need new something, even $100 a month invested consistently over 15 years at a 7% average annual return becomes over $30,000. That is not a miracle. That is arithmetic. If you are using a self-directed brokerage like Questrade or Wealthsimple, you can automate buying a specific ETF on a schedule. You set it, it runs, you stop needing willpower to do the right thing every month. Step 5, review and rebalance once a year, not once a week. Checking your portfolio every day is not discipline. It is anxiety with a login. Markets move. Individual positions drift from your target allocation. Once a year, you look at your numbers. Compare them to your target percentages and rebalance if anything has drifted more than 5 percentage points. If your U.S. equities have grown to 70% because markets ran, you trim slightly and add to your underweight positions. That is it. You do not need a spreadsheet system with 17 tabs. You need to know what your target allocation is, what it currently is, and which direction to push. The rest is noise. And one practical note, as you age or as your financial situation changes, your allocation will shift heavier in equities now to build the base, gradually introducing more stability as the portfolio grows and the window shortens. That is not inconsistency. That is wisdom applied in sequence. Here's what it all comes down to. The Canadian financial system has tools that can build real wealth for anyone who knows how to use them. You do not need a six-figure income. You need the right structure, the right instruments, and the discipline to let them run. To see exactly how this works in practice, I've put my own blueprint on the screen right now. Click on this video point to screen to see how I transitioned my severance check from Abu Dhabi into my first real Canadian investment. Or if you want the raw data, click right here to see how I made 13% in my first year, including what worked and what didn't. The strategy is proven. Pick one, and I'll see you there.